Hey, it's Tim here from TMR, and it's post King of the Hammers, and we're excited to get started on the build of our new IFS kit car called the Paradigm. So this is going to be a bit of a build series. I'm going to walk you guys through the assembly of the parts, why we picked those parts, why we designed things, why we picked the materials we chose, but it's just going to hopefully contain a lot of good information for those of you interested in our kits or putting one together yourself. Hopefully you'll be able to use these videos at home, to help you with assembly. So first things first, I want to go on a bit of a shop tour here. Our shop isn't that we're building this in. We consider it the same as a two-car garage. There's nothing fancy over here for equipment. I'll walk you around, give you a quick tour, and you'll see kind of what we use to build stuff over here. All right, so as you see, a good chunk of our shop space is storage. We've got the Kids Racer 200, the Blueprint TJ, kind of the original TMR build, Laura's Jeep, dubbed the Tractor. We got Super Jeep over there. Got my dad's CJ5 and our Hammers truck, kind of mid-prep. You can see there's the transfer case and Magnum box out for service. The transmission's out for service over there. Interior's all apart, obviously, with those parts out. And then we've got some kind of a clean slate here, some space. Our trailer's in here for the winter. It'll go out once the weather's better. And then, yeah, in terms of fabrication equipment, we got one Everlast TIG welder, got one Miller MIG welder, basic table there, fume extractor, workbench, cordless tools, toolbox there. We used that for hammers, worked out awesome. Tires off the race truck, more tools. And yeah, you can see jack stand, shop brass, belt sander, drill press, grinder there, portaband, a few specialty tools and stuff around here. And then yeah, these are parts that obviously came off our hammers truck as it's a part, but as you can see, it's pretty much, we think, the equivalent of what you can do in a two-car garage. So I just want you guys to know that we're not in a fancy shop. We treat this hopefully like you guys do, building at home, in terms of we might have a little more space over here, but most of it's consumed. So yeah, we're using state-of-the-art stuff to manufacture, obviously, the kits and whatnot, but that's not what's going on over here in terms of assembly. I'll be doing it the exact same as you guys would be at home, hopefully on a workbench with a welder or two, and let's get into it. Okay, so the first parts we're gonna build are the rear trailing arms. They're very similar to the trailing arm kit we've been selling for years. These guys are constructed from 4130 though, for some added durability. So it's a 2-inch quarter wall tube with all 3/16 and 1/4-inch top plates. So I'll tear these open and show you guys the components that make these up. And why are we doing a trailing arm out of 4130 as opposed to, you see a lot of billet aluminum stuff out there? We've seen a lot of failures. Our one friend, he's broken 2 sets of billet 7075 trailing arms on his car, and that's cost him in multiple races. So we think the 4130 is a better option, to be honest. The other good thing is you can weld this at home. If you're paying a shop to do this, you're probably looking at 40 hours of labor, TIG welding. That's what I hear for somebody to weld up a set. These guys are gonna be MIG welded. You can do that at home, save yourself a boatload of money. And we think this is honestly a more durable product than the aluminum versions for this application. So let's see what we got. Okay, so the rear trailing arm kit comes in 3 boxes. We got a box there with all the 4130 plates, a box there with the 4130 tube, and a box there that's gonna have our rod end or anti-wobble, etc. in it. So I won't bore you guys with a detailed opening of these. I'll just blast through it, and then we'll get into the details on what components are in here. All right, now that I've struggled through the unboxing process, shout out to our warehouse team. That stuff was packed for war, so I appreciate that. So here we are. So we got 48 inches of 2-inch quarter wall, 4130. You can see down on this end, this guy's notched. So the reason it comes pre-notched like that is so that any wobble joint's gonna fit right on there, make that easy to weld. And then we got all the 4130 top plates that are gonna get welded up into this assembly. Basically all those plates are gonna laminate and sit on top of these arms. And then our other box here is all the good hardware. So we got FK rod ends, heat treated 17.4 stainless misalignments, which we do. Obviously that anti-wobble joint we looked at, we'll check that out in detail later. Again, it's all 4130 or 4140 components with a good FK bearing. I'm gonna leave that stuff in the box for now, not gonna be into it for a while. But effectively, the next step's going to be fitting these top plates onto the tube and welding her up. Okay, next step on all these plates is going to be sanding and deburring. We want a clean surface when we're doing our welding. Simple tools for this. DA orbital sander here. And I just got a little 2-inch grinder there. Angle grinder with a flap disc will work. Belt sander, lots of different ways to tackle this, but essentially I want to take all the plates from the trailing arms and sand them all out so everything's nice and clean for welding. Make sure there's no debris, burrs, that sort of thing. So that's the next step we're gonna follow here. All right, now that we've got all these parts sanded with the DA cleaned up, use the small sander in a couple spots where there are burrs. Anyways, that's all ready to rock. Next step's gonna be to clean them. So I'm gonna give everything a nice wipe down with acetone, all these plates as well as the tubes. I'll show you that, and then we're gonna get on to fitting everything together. Okay, after cleaning everything up with acetone, I've got all the parts here, and I'll just show you quickly how these go together nice and easy. All these parts, they've got a simple tab like that and a slot. Again, we're seeing tab, slot, slots there. They're gonna mate up with the tabs here. So I'll go put this guy together on the bench, and then I'll show it together. Show it to you once it's together, and then we'll talk about weld process as well as a couple items it's gonna look like I'm initially leaving out that are gonna be welded in post heat treat, but I'll show you that together with everything on the bench. I think you'll get a better picture on how things work here. Okay, and here is what a arm looks like after it's all fit together. You can see all those parts, all the keyways, like I pointed out before. So a couple things to note. If you are building your arms and not planning on heat treating them, you can put the uniball cup in now. I've got it sitting in there. I have it just tacked in so I can position this top plate and the side plates on up to it. It's gonna stay in there while I weld, but before heat treating, it's gonna come out. We don't wanna heat treat with that in there because it's gonna warp the ID there where the bearing's gotta ride, and we don't want that. Same in the back here. I've got our tube adapter, the threaded tube adapter that's gonna take the Heim. It's in there now for placement purposes, so I know where to get all these tabs and everything, but it's gonna stay in there while we weld. It's gonna come out before heat treating. Then after heat treating, the tube adapter and the anti-wobble housing on the other end, they'll get welded in at that point. Something else to show you guys. These guys, these shock welding spacers. So they're part number 2485. Get yourself basically one for each position. So I've got one mocked in there, empty one sitting here just so you can kind of see how all the plates fit and stuff. Idea behind them, they're machined roughly 30 thou oversized. So once all your welding's done, remove them. Your shock eye, your 1.5 wide shock eye is gonna fit in there nicely because we've got that extra 30 thou gap. If you don't do that, good chance this pocket's gonna shrink and you're gonna have to machine down the misalignments on your shock. Or you're just gonna fight it. Not a good experience. So yeah, those you're gonna wanna use while doing your welding. When it comes to heat treating, that's gotta be a steel piece. So we're kind of experimenting with what to do there. But we can't leave the aluminum in there for heat treating, so that's gonna change. But for those of you guys that aren't heat treating these arms, those spacers can basically stay in there for the life of the welding. So there it is, kind of end to end. Next step is gonna be to weld basically between here and here on the arm. So call it there and there. And after that's welded, this overlay plate will go on, and then we can weld out the whole thing. So I'm kind of not gonna bore you with that. Let's pop on over and talk about welding it, the process itself. Okay, so lots of guys asked about our chassis, and are we going to TIG weld the chassis? Or are we gonna MIG weld the chassis? And the answer is a bit of both. There's nothing wrong with either process. TIG welding, I'm still learning. It's a slow process for me. MIG, I'm gonna be able to make this happen much faster, and ultimately we wanna show that the chassis can be MIG welded. We find more of our customers are into MIG welding, lots are into TIG as well, but MIG is definitely more common. There's a common misconception that you can't weld 4130 or chromoly with MIG. It's not true at all. It just comes down to the wire you're using. We're using ER80 SD2, and that's gonna allow for heat treating the parts. So again, we're gonna be treating all the suspension components, or that trailing arm, the upper wishbone, the front A-arms, etc. That ADD2 works as well if you don't want to heat treat. So I'm kind of recommending everybody use that wire, whether you are planning to heat treat your parts or not. You might find that you don't initially plan on it, but maybe things change and you do decide to do it, or maybe down the road. you want to treat them. So yeah, I would just use that ER80 SD2. We got ours, Blue Demon brand, seems to be the most common on the market, but that's no different than if we're taking the parts again, we're going to use ER80 as well, because again, it lends itself to being treated. So yes, we're going to do a mix of both. A lot of the components are going to be MIG welded strictly for speed and efficiency, because we want to get this thing obviously done and in the dirt. That's kind of fun part too after the build. So hopefully that covers everything regarding these trailing arms. Next video, I'll show you, they're probably going to be a finished product. So I'm going to get into welding. I'm not going to bore you with that. Everyone knows kind of what blue sparks look like from a MIG welder. So I'll see you guys when this is all wrapped up. Okay, and that's a wrap on our first video on the Paradigm chassis. We covered the rear trailing arms. And if you guys like this type of comment, make sure subscribe, hit the bell so you get the alerts. And most importantly, comment below. Tell me what you like, what you don't like, because obviously you guys kind of shape this channel. We want to make it relevant content to you guys and hopefully help you out with these builds, whether you're building one of our chassis or other. Hopefully we've got some tips and tricks you can make use. So let us know in the comments below what you're into.